Kristin, and you're listening to Podcast and Amplify, a podcast for women entrepreneurs who want to amplify their voice and brand through podcasting and grow a wildly successful business. I'm the executive producer and host of 2 shows and an entrepreneur, and I love helping women grow their visibility, mindset, and business to the next level. Each week, I share tips on how to launch and leverage your podcast, and I'm bringing on the very best business leaders to give you advice on how to build your business empire. Let's amplify your voice and business. Hey there, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Kristin, and this is the final episode of season 2. So this has been a fantastic season. I loved just putting the season together. I want to talk a little bit about how I've seen this season change compared to season 1. What were the highlights from the guests that I had on to some of the solo episodes that I did, and just kind of do a wrap-up episode. That's what this show is today. And I want to remind you all that season 3 will launch in September. So we're taking a little break over the summer. I'll be doing some creative thinking around this podcast and where I want it to go. I've already spoken to some fantastic potential guests, people who've already agreed to come on the show and are excited about it. And I'll be setting up those interviews and doing those interviews over the summer so that we will be ready to launch the show in September. And what's exciting about September is the 15th is the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month. In season 1, I did a full month of interviews with Latina entrepreneurs, personal development coaches. So I plan on doing that again this season. So I'm excited about that. As a Latina, I love supporting fellow Latinas in their businesses, sharing their knowledge. So that's something to look forward to. But I want to pivot back to this season and some of the things that I learned through season 1 and coming into season 2. So the difference for me was that season 2, I wanted to have a little more balance between the business advice and the business side of things in terms of the interviews and the guests that I had on. I wanted to balance that with more personal development guests, mindset topics, because what I realized is that, as entrepreneurs, we bring our full selves to these businesses that we're creating. So it was really important to me to address the issues or the challenges or the growth opportunities in a holistic way. So I wanted to talk to you all and consider your whole selves, not just the sort of nitty gritty of business, which I think is super valuable, super important. And that's why I had shows like how to create the right systems, how to protect your business from a legal standpoint, how to know when to hire a business manager, topics like that, which were very much about growing your business and running your business. I also had more people on that were coaches or they were business / mindset coaches. So one of the first guests I had on around that area was Emma Louise Parks, and she talked about how to expand your mindset and your business through energy clearing. I had Anna Lilia talk about breath work. We talked about feminine and masculine energy, how to unlock your full potential, how to become unstoppable, achieving your goals. So there are a lot more conversations that I felt were motivational, inspiring, and that spoke to empowering you as an individual to not only tap into your strength, but to also take care of yourself, take care of your mind, honor your energy. And so I hope you enjoyed those episodes as well. I felt really good about this season and the balance that I achieved between the two. That felt like something that was really aligned with me and my journey and how I wanted to support all of you who are listening in your own entrepreneurial journeys and your own growth, because the two are so intertwined. I think I said this in a comment to someone who had commented on one of my posts. You can only grow your business as big as you see yourself. So that component of thinking about your energy, your mindset, your goals is really important to your business growth. And I really do believe the two are intertwined. That's been my experience through my coaching. I've come such a long way from working on just my mindset and seeing how that impacts my business, the opportunities that I sort of dare to go after. And then it's like, oh, wow, this outcome is actually really fantastic. But had I not done that internal work, that opportunity would never have happened. I would have maybe never have seen it. I would never have gone after it. So there's a lot of different ways that can manifest itself in your business. And so I'm really excited for this final interview episode that came out this week because I invited my coach, Daisy Lopez, onto the show. And she is talking all about embodiment work and how important that is to your healing, and just your journey in general. And it's something that as an overthinker, I feel like I resisted a lot because I'm so used to being in my head. For me, I realize it gives me a sense of control if I can think through something, but it's really an illusion. And I was able to see that through the work I've done with Daisy, because she very much helps me get into my body, tap into what's going on physically. And we do a lot of somatic practices. So it's a really great episode. Please tune in. I know you'll get a lot from it. And she's just wonderful, empowering person herself. So that's really how I saw season 2 had evolved from season 1. It was a lot more balanced, in my opinion. And for season 3, I am feeling called to share content and interviews that are more impactful. But right now, I'm not quite seeing what that means or what that looks like. But I know that as I take these few months off and am able to sit with this show, I have time to reflect on it and think about how I want to help impact all of you even more. I can see some changes coming, some tweaks, but I really want this to be an empowering podcast, an inspiring podcast, an aspirational podcast. My goal is to really uplift and empower in a meaningful way. That's always my goal behind everything that I do. And so, of course, for me, I'm always looking for how can I do that more? How can I do that a little bit more? And so I think that's the journey that I'm on right now. And I'm excited to see where that takes me. But also this season, I really enjoyed sharing my solo episodes that I shared. I enjoyed recording them and sharing them with you all. And we talked about a lot in terms of podcasting, from how to tap into your creativity to build your podcast, to maybe why perfectionism is preventing you from starting a podcast. I talked about having ease when you podcast, vetting podcast guests, launching your podcast. And one that I really loved creating was the episode about the secret superpowers that make introverts powerful podcasters. Because as an introvert, I just love this medium for us. And I think it's a really great way for us to amplify our voices. I really do think we're suited to have a podcast because of all of just our innate qualities. So if you haven't listened to that episode and you're an introvert, go ahead and listen. We talked about upgrading your podcast and organically growing it. So I covered a lot. And if you missed any of them, go back and listen, because there's some really juicy episodes there that will give you a lot of useful information around podcasting. So for season 3, I'm really excited to continue to evolve this podcast. For me, as I mentioned in one of my previous episodes, it might have been the kickoff episode of this season, is I'm really all about the evolution and growing and just making things that much more impactful. Improving something and making something better really means to me is how much more impact can I have in a really meaningful way. So season 2, we've had some of the biggest guests we've ever had on the show, which is really exciting. I look forward to continuing to get bigger and bigger guests. And also, I'm always mindful of bigger is not always better. So big guests are great. They bring potentially more ears listening to the show. However, I will always have big guests and small guests because, like my guest Vicki Quinn Frazier talked about in the episode on the power of storytelling and why small stories matter, I do believe that everyone's story is valuable and that people need to see themselves at different stages in their businesses. So just like I had Janice Torres Rodriguez on the show talk about blogging, I also had someone like Manaz Sharif on, and she came and talked about reclaiming your time and your energy to grow a joyful business. And that was her first podcast. And what's interesting is her podcast was the most listened to podcast midway through the season. So I thought that was really interesting. I think she just had a really fantastic community. She had so many comments on her posts when she posted about being on the podcast. So it's just goes to show that you never know what's going to resonate with people. But if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that diversity is at the core of the mission of this show, that I am very intentional about the voices that I bring on the show and intentional about sharing diverse voices so that people can see themselves represented on podcasts. Along with that diversity is the big guests who have 200,000 followers on Instagram to the smaller guests who have maybe 500 followers on Instagram. So I really want to make this podcast an inclusive space. That's really important to me. That will always remain the core mission of this show. So while the show may continue to evolve, our core mission and values stay the same. And I would love to know if you have topics or guests that you would like to hear on the show. Let me know. Drop me a DM over on Instagram. But this podcast is really to support you. So any suggestions that you have, topics you want to hear, I'd love to hear them because it'll help me create episodes that really speak to you and your challenges as an entrepreneur. And also, if there are any guests that you heard on this season that you would like to have back, let me know that as well. So this season, I brought back Karen Williams Thompson, and she spoke about how to unlock your full potential, which was another really powerful episode. In season 1, she had come on to talk about how to say yes to your dreams. I absolutely love that conversation. It was one of my favorites of season 1. So that's why I invited her back for another episode. So if there's anyone that you've heard on the show that you're like, I did not get enough of them, I want them to come back, I am always open to doing that. So make sure you let me know. And that's it for this wrap-up episode. I really hope that you got a lot of value from this season. I had so much fun creating it. I had so much fun speaking to these amazing people, hearing their stories and learning from them. And I hope that you were able to do the same. And I loved creating the solo episodes. I hope that you found them educational and impactful for your podcast journey. And if you loved this season, and you haven't left a review yet, go ahead and go on over to iTunes and leave us a review. I would love to get your feedback on the show, and leaving us these reviews is really one of the best ways to support our show. And I really appreciate it and read every single one. And for those of you who have left reviews, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. And I'll actually post a few of the reviews soon on Instagram, so you'll get a little shout out over there. And even if you haven't left a review and you're just an avid listener of the show, you tune in every week, or you've even listened to just a few episodes, thank you so much for listening to this show. I can't tell you how much it means to me that anyone tunes in and listens, but I really do think I'm providing some great content for you all. And the fact that you tune in, it just means so much. It's hard to put into words. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And remember that season 3 will be out in September. I hope you all have a fantastic summer. Enjoy the warm weather. I hope you all have some fun vacations planned. For me, I have a camping vacation planned, but I live where people vacation. So we tend to stay put and enjoy the ocean and the mountains that are so close to us. But we're definitely feeling those summer vibes over here. Have a safe, fun summer. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in season 3. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe so you don't miss a show. And rating and reviewing this podcast is the best way to help support us. Always remember, your voice and what you have to offer is needed in the world. Until next week, take care.